Hello. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about what to do with those leftovers. Those absolutely delicious leftovers that we keep, and I've shown you in a previous video how I store my leftovers in my drawers that I've labelled, and today I just wanted to show you how to make some random scrappy 9-patches. Now I'm sure most of you know how to make a 9-patch, but I just thought I'd go through the process with you just to show you that they don't have to be terribly organised. So I've got here some 2.5-inch strips. We're going to make a 6.5-inch block that measures 6.5 inches today. So I need some 2.5-inch squares. So I've gone to my drawer that's got 2.5-inch strips in it, and I can cut some squares from there. So I might lay them, maybe 4 of them together in a little pile, and I'm going to cut myself some little squares to make some 9-patches. So you obviously need 9 squares for one block. I'm just going to trim off the end. I'm just using the markings on my board so that I've got a nice straight edge, and then come along and cut it 2.5 inches. Now I could go through and cut a whole heap, but I won't do that to you today because I've actually already cut some. But just to show you that by having my 2.5-inch strips already in my drawer, everything's ready to get started on the next little part of a project that I'm working on. So I've got these squares here, and they just, as I said, quite random in their colouring. They're not supposed to be organised in any way. I haven't checked them out at all, and I'm just going to put together some 9-patches. As I said, quite random. So I'll just do one block while we're here. So I'm just going to pick up 2 squares, put them right sides together, and I'm just going to chain piece the block, just using my 1/4-inch seam allowance. So I would do those 2. Then I'm going to pick up the next 2 and feed them in as well. And I'm going to pick up the next 2. There's 3 rows per block. Now you could go on doing more of these, but I'm just doing the one block today. So that's those so far, but we need 3 across, so I'm going to go back in now and add the next fabric on the end of that row so that I've got 3 lots of 3. So this is a great way of using up all sorts of bits and pieces. I've previously made some 4 patches in this same sort of way from my leftovers containers, and I'm just collecting blocks at the moment. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with them, but I thought if I showed you that you can also do something like that. You've got some blocks already on hand if you need to make something maybe in a hurry, or you just want to make something using them because they're just quite delicious. Now I've finished sewing those 3 rows together, and I could just sort of continue on sewing, but I'm going to cut them apart and press them before I go any further so that the seams are all going where I want them. So I'm going to press 1 row of seams going all in one direction, so always all over to my left, and I'm going to do the next row. It doesn't particularly matter which way around they go unless you've got them organised, but we're doing kind of random scrap piecing at this stage. And then my other row also going that way. So basically what we want is 1 row of seams going one way, this row of seams going that way, and this row of seams again going that way, so that when we sew these rows together everything's going to snuggle in together at those seam points. So now I'm going to take 2 rows and sew them together, and I'm just nestling those seams together. You can feel when they're sitting nicely together, and just come along here. So even though we're using random fabrics, they are pretty much all from a type. Like these ones are all quite bright and fun. You probably would want to keep things that would work together rather than completely random, putting all sorts of odd jobs together. That could look a little bit odd job. So I'm just sewing this next row together now so that we'll have our 3 rows together. to make one of these blocks. Sometimes you can do some of these things just in between other projects that you're working on, and you're just accumulating bits and pieces as you go. So now I'm going to press those seams all one way. And there I have a very happy little 9-patch block there. I could make more, and I will be making more, but I won't do that while you're watching at the moment. So I'm just collecting up blocks that I'm making out of my leftovers, and you have previously seen that I've made some fairly bright 4 patches, and I'm going to work out a way of being able to use these blocks together. So I just thought I'd quickly show you how you can just put an assortment of fabrics together. I would suggest that you keep them to your brights or to your reproductions or whatever it is that you like to use the most, rather than throwing brights in amongst the more country ones, unless you're really confident about which bits that you want to go where, so that there is something that's kind of holding it together, because you want it to be a nice bright quilt. You don't want to suddenly have all these dull colours that are kind of messing up the scenery. So hopefully that's been of some help to you, just to have an idea of how you might use up some of those delicious leftovers.